This is a story about loss and longing, about the vastness of time and space, about all the things that we can't know. But it's also a story about discovery, about history coming alive, about whispers from the past carried on the wind across the sea. It's the kind of story that I like. I am the host, and this is the first part of a 4-part series about one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. This is the story of the Lost Tomb of Cleopatra. Welcome back, everybody. For those of you who are new here, hi, welcome to the channel. We make these long-form narrations that are designed for sleep and relaxation. And if you've been here before, then welcome home. It's nice to see you again. Let's start by setting a scene. Imagine yourself in the city of Alexandria. Now imagine yourself walking along the shore at night. You're alone. The sand is cool beneath your feet. The air smells salty. Far off in the distance, you hear the mournful cry of a lonely boat. The waves lap gently at the shore, whispering secrets from distant lands. You feel the breeze on your skin, a caress from the darkness. Above you, the sky is a vast expanse of twinkling stars. The Milky Way stretches across the horizon like a river of light. Somewhere near you, an owl hoots softly. It's just you, and the sea, and the stars. And there in the darkness, something else, something ancient, something that has been waiting for you. Take a deep breath in, then breathe out and relax into this moment. Allow the stress of the day to melt away. Let yourself drift into a state of peaceful calm. Close your eyes and let the sound of the waves carry you away. Imagine the gentle rocking of a boat on the sea. Feel the warmth of the sun on your face. Let the sound of the sea and the starlight lull you into a state of peaceful relaxation. And now, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story about a secret buried deep beneath the sands of time. About a queen whose beauty was said to have captivated an empire. About a love story that has echoed through the ages. The year is 323 BCE. The place, Alexandria. A city that was once the jewel of the Mediterranean. And at the center of it all, the great library. A treasure trove of knowledge from around the world. In the heart of the city, in a magnificent palace adorned with gold and ivory, lived a queen. Her name was Cleopatra. She was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt, a descendant of Alexander the Great and Ptolemy I. And though she had ruled Egypt for over 2 decades, most people knew little about her. Cleopatra was known throughout the land for her intelligence, her wit, and her charm. She was a patron of the arts and sciences. She loved learning. She spoke 9 languages and was a master of disguise. Most of all, she was passionate about her country. She wanted to make Egypt the greatest empire in the world. But it was not easy being a queen. There were always enemies lurking in the shadows, ready to strike, and Cleopatra had to be on guard at all times. She needed allies. Powerful allies who could help her protect her kingdom, and she found one such ally in Rome. Rome was a republic in its heyday, a melting pot of cultures, a center of power and influence. And in the midst of all this, 2 brothers, Gaius Julius Caesar and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus. They were rivals, but they were also friends. They had fought together in wars. They had shared victories. They had faced defeats side by side. They had come of age during the civil war that brought down the Roman Republic and established the Roman Empire. They were ambitious, ruthless, and determined to succeed no matter the cost. They had both come to Alexandria seeking the same thing, power. But it was Cleopatra who caught Caesar's eye. He was captivated by her beauty, her intelligence, her spirit. She was everything he had ever wanted in a partner. And he was not the only one. Cleopatra had many suitors, men from all over the empire, all eager to win her hand in marriage. But she wanted someone special, someone who understood her, someone who could match her intellect, someone who could help her protect her kingdom. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria, Cleopatra was just 19 years old, a young woman of rare beauty and intelligence. She was the daughter of King Ptolemy XII and his wife Cleopatra V. Try as she might. Cleopatra couldn't deny the attraction she felt towards the Roman general. They had met in secret, hidden away from prying eyes and ears. Their love had blossomed in the shadows. A stolen moment here, a furtive glance there. It had been a dangerous game, but the risk had been worth it. But now it was time to take a chance. to reveal their love to the world. So when Caesar came to Alexandria, Cleopatra did something bold. She hid in a carpet and snuck into his ship. When he realized what had happened, he was furious. But he was also impressed by her audacity. He had never met a woman like Cleopatra before, and so it was that the Roman general and the Egyptian queen fell in love. They had a son together, a boy they named Caesarion, and ruled Egypt as co-regents. It was a golden age for Egypt. Trade flourished, the economy grew, and the arts and sciences thrived. But it was not to last. Caesar was assassinated in Rome, and soon after, Cleopatra and her sister, the equally fierce and formidable ruler of Egypt, committed suicide to avoid capture by Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir, who would become the first emperor of Rome. With their deaths, the line of Ptolemy's kings and queens came to an end, and Egypt became a province of Rome. For centuries, the story of Cleopatra and Caesar was passed down through the ages. People wondered where she was buried, what had happened to her tomb. Some believed it was lost forever, while others claimed it still existed, hidden somewhere beneath the sands of time. In the 18th century, the French explorer Napoleon Bonaparte led an expedition to Alexandria in search of Cleopatra's tomb, but he came up empty-handed. Then in the early 20th century, a British Egyptologist, Flinders Petrie, began excavating a site near the shore of the Mediterranean. He uncovered a series of tunnels and chambers, but none of them contained Cleopatra's remains. The search for the lost tomb continued throughout the 20th century, but it wasn't until recently that a team of archaeologists made a breakthrough. They discovered a burial chamber filled with treasures beyond compare, sarcophagi adorned with hieroglyphics and reliefs depicting scenes from Egyptian mythology. But there was no sign of Cleopatra or Caesar. Some believe that her body was lost to the sea, that it was cremated and scattered on the winds of the desert. Others believe it was hidden away, taken by her loyal servants so that it would never fall into the hands of her enemies. Where is the lost tomb of Cleopatra? Did her body ever rest in peace, or is it still wandering the earth, searching for its final resting place? What do you think? So let me ask you something. Have you ever searched for something that seemed to be lost forever? Maybe a childhood toy or a family heirloom, maybe a loved one or a dream. What did you find? Was it what you were looking for? Or was it something else entirely? I want you to close your eyes and imagine yourself walking along the shore of the sea. The sand is cool beneath your feet. The air smells salty. In the distance, you hear the mournful cry of a lonely boat. You feel the breeze on your skin, a caress from the darkness. Above you, the sky is a vast expanse of twinkling stars. The Milky Way stretches across the horizon like a river of light. Somewhere near you, an owl hoots softly. It's just you, the sea and the stars, and there in the darkness, something else, something ancient, something that has been waiting for you. Take a deep breath in, then breathe out and relax into this moment. Allow the stress of the day to melt away. Let yourself drift into a state of peaceful calm. Close your eyes and let the sound of the waves carry you away. Imagine the gentle rocking of a boat on the sea. Feel the warmth of the sun on your face. Let the sound of the sea and the starlight lull you into a state of peaceful relaxation. Go now, my friend. Rest well and dream sweet dreams. The great queen is dead. Where is she? Her adopted brother and lover, King of Egypt, lies dead at her feet. The generals of Rome are gathering at Actium, preparing for war, and who's to say where she might be? Rumor has it she was last seen by so-and-so, heard of in such and such a place. But those who've truly seen her know that they cannot speak of it now, not while Octavian holds his court nearby and his spies are everywhere. Not while the Nile flows red or blue or black with the blood of her enemies. I have seen the Great Queen. Let me tell you what I saw, and you may decide if you believe me. It was just after sunset when my boat arrived at the palace. A golden barge lay moored beside the landing stage, its sails furled and oars locked in place. It looked like a sleeping bird, silent and watchful. We made our way through the deserted streets, past shuttered shops and darkened doorways. All lights had been extinguished in the city. None dared stay awake after dark these days. Not since the palace guards opened fire on the citizens and wounded many. Perhaps even killed some, though nobody knows for sure. Nobody dares. The streets were empty, but we could hear the murmur of crowds close by, near the harbor. And as we walked, we could see the glow of torches flickering through cracks in the buildings. Voices whispered from the shadows, half heard, half guessed. They were talking about the great queen, calling her a sorceress, a witch, even a goddess. How many of them still believed that she was immortal, that she would rise again, that nothing could harm her? At the end of a narrow street, we came upon a high wall. An archway gaped open, revealing a path overgrown with weeds. The stone was cracked and crumbling. Vines had taken root in every crevice, drawing life from the dying city. We passed under the arch and followed the twisting path to the river. There, between the reeds and the murky water, we found a small boat. A single guard sat in it, fast asleep. He stirred when he heard our footsteps and woke with a start. He demanded to know who we were and where we were going, but paid us little heed when we answered back. He knew we were only humble servants of the queen, whilst we knew that he was only a pawn in her game. For this guard, like all men, feared death more than anything. But we also knew that this man had once been proud, that he too had believed the queen was invincible, that he too had seen her rise from the ashes like a mythical bird, until that day when the people rose against the palace. On that day, he chose to survive, to live another day, to live for as long as he could, even if it meant forsaking the great queen. As soon as he had dipped his paddle into the water, I heard her voice behind me. She stood there framed in the moonlight, beautiful and terrible, and called out to him, saying, "What do you fear, little boatman? What are you afraid of? Is it not your duty to carry the queen wherever she wishes to go?" But the boatman didn't answer. Instead, he urged his boat forward, desperate to escape from her. But we were not surprised when he suddenly stopped rowing and turned back to her. Fear had turned his arms to lead. He was paralyzed by terror. And then, very softly, she spoke to him again, and her voice was like honeyed wine. "Do you wish to serve the Queen of the Nile? Will you help her on her journey to the river Styx?" And with that, he nodded his head dumbly and allowed her to climb aboard. We sailed down the river silently, under the pale gaze of the moon, past dark and brooding shapes on the bank. Sometimes the branches of trees scraped against the side of our boat, and each time I thought, beware, beware, because the queen was there behind me. And she was dangerous. At last, we reached a wide stretch of water. Before us, the river flowed on, dark and endless. Nothing moved on the surface of the water. Even the papyrus plants growing at the edge of the river seemed to be holding their breath. In the distance, across the water, we could hear drums beating slowly and solemnly. And now she spoke to me, and her voice was like the rustling of leaves. "Tell me, little one, have you ever seen the Lady of the Lake?" "No, great queen." "Then watch, well now, for you will never see her like again." She lifted her chin and stared straight ahead, and there before us, rising from the dark water, was a woman unlike any other. She was wrapped in a cloak of mist and looked as though she had stepped right out of the river. As we drew closer, she raised her arms above her head, and at that moment, the mist parted and we saw that she was crowned with reeds, and her hair was woven with lilies. Her dress was green as the new leaves, and round her neck she wore a necklace of emeralds and diamonds. In her hand, she held aloft a silver mirror. She called out to the queen, and her voice was like the sound of a lute string. "Cleopatra, daughter of the Nile, you have called me and I am here. You have summoned me from my sleep, and I have come. Now speak your desire, and I will grant it to you." Then Cleopatra stood up tall in her boat and raised her voice above the quiet lapping of the water. "I am weary, Lady of the Lake. Carry me to my rest. Take me to my tomb where I shall dwell forevermore." And as she said those words, I saw the Lady of the Lake turn her head and smile at her. It was the strangest, saddest smile I have ever seen, and yet it filled me with joy. I wanted to cry out, "No, don't go," but no sound came from my lips. The Lady of the Lake dipped her hand into the water, and wept at the surface of the river wrinkled and twisted, forming a path for them both to walk along. Without hesitation, Cleopatra left her boat and stepped onto the water. She did not walk. She floated towards the shore. her arms outstretched as though embracing the river, her face raised to the sky as though welcoming the stars. She took the hand of the Lady of the Lake, and together they disappeared among the papyrus plants, and there were drums again, beating softly and sadly. And then all was silent. The beat of my own heart echoed in my ears. I wanted to call out to her, to beg her to wait, but I couldn't speak. Only when the boatman touched my shoulder and asked if I was coming did I come back to myself. I shook my head and forced myself to look away. "We must return now," he said, and I knew that he was right. And as we rowed away, I looked back one last time. The boats were gone, and the river flowed on, dark and endless. Did she die? Did she escape? Who knows? But this I can tell you. When the sun rises, you will find the city deserted, the streets empty. If you search the palace, you will find it abandoned. The Queen of the Nile is gone. So it is sighed. But I know better. In the end, I found her where I knew I would, in the gardens of the palace, deep in the tangled heart of the desert rose. Her skin was cold beneath my touch. The roses around her glowed faintly with an inner light. Her breathing was slow, almost imperceptible, and yet when I leaned closer, I could hear it, the steady whisper of her breath. She was alive, but when I laid my hand on her lips, they were cold as marble. Her eyes were closed, her eyelids like shutters barring the way to her soul. And as I gazed at her, I knew she was beyond my understanding, that I could never truly know her, that she would always be a mystery to me, a secret kept safe in the chambers of her heart. Let's have a look at some of the harder textual clues in this mystery, beginning with our friend Plutarch, whose work is so often referenced and also sometimes misunderstood. In his essay on Isis and Osiris, Plutarch says that the Egyptians held the festival of the which he also calls the Greater Mysteries, every 3 years. And he says that it was celebrated for 3 days in the city of Siwa, in the temple of the goddess Isis. On the first day, he says, people were purified and practiced silence. On the second day, they sacrificed 2 cows, one black and one without horns, and they feasted. And on the third day, they went to bathe in the river Nile. And when they came out of the water, they acclaimed Isis as the greatest of all gods. So far, this account is in agreement with what we have already heard from other writers, like Diodorus and Pliny. However, Plutarch goes on to tell us that there was another form of the Thesmophoria celebrated by women only in the city of Bubastes, also called the baboons of Egypt. For 3 successive nights, these women kept watch over the sacred enclosure called the which contained the most secret and sacred parts of the temple. But why? Well, according to Plutarch, they did this to guard against anyone defiling the threshold of the temple, because the goddess would be very angry if her threshold was defiled, showing how much more important it was not to defile the threshold than to sacrifice a bull unblemished and without horns. And if any girl was found asleep during the night, she was thrown into a deep pit where male initiates had been immured alive the previous day. Yikes. Wait. 2. We're being told that the Egyptian Thesmophoria involved human sacrifice. But don't worry, because according to Plutarch, this was a necessary evil, because if you didn't sacrifice humans, the goddess would take away their fertility, so human sacrifice was done to maintain fertility. But what about animal sacrifice? Well, Plutarch tells us that the female initiates brought along a ram for sacrifice, and if it turned out to be barren, then they chose a goat instead. But what if neither of those animals was suitable? Well, then they offered up a dog. You know, just in case. Now, let's move on to Cassius Dio, who offers a slightly different account. According to Dio, the Egyptians celebrated the Great Mysteries, which he also calls the Thesmophoria, every 3 years. And he tells us that it was celebrated in several cities throughout Egypt, including the cities of Naucratis, Thebes, and Alexandria. Now, the festival lasted 5 days, and on the first day, the women gathered together in the temple of Isis. And on the next day, they marched to the temple of Nephthys in silence, carrying torches and holding linen cloths over their heads. They spent the night here, and then on the third day, they returned to the temple of Isis. Then, on the fourth day, they went to the temple of Demeter, where they sacrificed a goat, an ox, and a dog. And on the last day, they went to the temple of Persephone, where they sacrificed a sow and a ram. And after the sacrifices were completed, they feasted. So the festivals we're being told about sound quite similar. But there are some differences. Instead of going to bathe in the Nile on the third day, as Plutarch said they did, Dio tells us that they go to the temple of Nephthys on the second day, where they spend the night. And also, they don't throw people into a pit here. They sacrifice animals. And the procession to the temple of Demeter seems to be absent from Plutarch's account. If these two accounts are referring to the same thing, then it looks like there were some local variations. Or perhaps they're referring to different things. Did the Egyptians celebrate two separate festivals that the Greeks called the... maybe? Or maybe Plutarch made some mistakes. After all, he made plenty of them when describing other religions, such as when he said that the Gauls sacrificed a white heifer to the goddess Epona, even though the Celts didn't have a goddess called Epona, and they wouldn't have sacrificed a cow because cows were sacred to them. Moving on, Strabo, who wrote a monumental 14-book work called the Geography, tells us that the Egyptians held the greater mysteries, which he also calls the Thesmophoria. Every 3 years in the city of Abad, he says that the festival lasted 7 days, but women only participated in the last 3 days of the festival. On the first day, an ox and a donkey were sacrificed. On the second day, a ram and a heifer were sacrificed. On the third day, 2 white bulls were sacrificed. And on the fourth day, there was a procession to the temple of Aphrodite, where more sacrifices were made. Strabo also mentions that there were some rituals involving the casting of lots, and that if you were chosen by lot, you could get your enemies put to death, or be granted money, wait to second. Does this mean the Egyptians practiced human sacrifice? Well, actually, this is probably another misunderstanding, because Strabo is almost certainly describing the Book of the Dead. So those enemies that got put to death might have been the enemies of the dead person whose funeral rites were being performed. Strabo, like many others, conflated religion and magic, so he thought that the Egyptians could kill their enemies by magic, but really, they were killing their enemies in the afterlife, with the power of their own personal Book of the Dead. There are lots of other little details that we can examine, such as this one from Macrobius. He tells us that on the first day of the Thesmophoria, women were not allowed to eat cucumbers. But why? Well, apparently, this was because cucumbers cause an abortion. Or this one from Aulus Gellius, who tells us that a woman who participated in the festival had to bring a distaff with her. He says that this was to make sure that the woman wasn't a virgin, because if she was a virgin, she couldn't participate. But why? Well, apparently it was taboo to speak about virginity in connection with the goddess Isis, although no other source says this. Speaking of taboo, let's talk about pigs. Pigs were banned from the Thesmophoria, according to multiple sources. It wasn't just because pigs are dirty, it was because pigs produce oink, and you can't say oink in connection with the name of the goddess Isis. That would be taboo. Another thing that was taboo was being left alone in the temple. If you were caught doing that, you would suffer a terrible fate. Your limbs would fall off, your hair would turn gray, and your insides would rot. How do we know this? Because someone named Athenaius was caught doing this. That's right. He was one of the few male priests of Isis, and he was caught doing something he shouldn't have been doing. So the gods punished him. His limbs fell off, his hair turned gray, and his insides rotted. Yikes. The final detail I want to share comes from Philo of Alexandria. He tells us that the festival of the Thesmophoria took place during the month of Thamuthi, which means either it took place in July or August, or the Egyptian calendar was used. If the latter is true, then the festival probably took place in January or February, because in the Egyptian calendar, the month of Thamuthi occurred then. I hope you found this video interesting. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me again soon for more videos about ancient Egypt. And now, we're ready for part 4 of our tour of Alexandria. But first, would you like to visit ancient Greece? Because it's here, right there. Yes, it is. You can explore over 25 ancient Greek cities, including the legendary birthplace of the Olympic Games in Olympia and many more. So if you have any interest at all in ancient history or mythology, this is something you should definitely check out. But let's get back to our tour of Alexandria. Now, before we start, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your very positive response to the previous episode. It really means a lot to me. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. The platform really needs it. Thank you. Okay, now let's go. We're gonna continue our exploration of Alexandria today by taking a look at what was once the royal quarter of the city. This district was situated near the center of town on the western side of the ancient harbor. It contained some of the most important buildings in the city, such as the royal palaces and the lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the ancient world's 7 wonders. The palaces were home to the royal family and some of the most powerful people in the known world. They were also a major center of political power. Unfortunately, both palaces were destroyed by earthquakes in the 14th century and lie in ruins beneath the sea. The royal palace of the Ptolemies was built in the 3rd century BC by Ptolemy I, who was one of Alexander the Great's generals. After his death, Ptolemy I became the ruler of Egypt, and he founded the Ptolemaic kingdom. He ruled from 305 to 283 BC, and his dynasty lasted until 30 BC, when Cleopatra VII and her lover, Mark Antony, committed suicide rather than submit to Octavian, later known as Augustus Caesar. The palace was built in the Greek style, but it was heavily influenced by Egyptian architecture and art. It consisted of a series of courtyards surrounded by colonnades, and it was decorated with reliefs depicting scenes from Egyptian mythology. The palace also housed a library, which was one of the largest in the ancient world. It contained scrolls and books on a wide variety of subjects, including history, philosophy, science, and literature. Another interesting feature of the royal quarter was the harbors. These were major centers of trade and commerce, and they played an important role in the economy of the city. One of the most important harbors was the port of Piraeus. It was situated on the eastern side of the harbor, and was a major hub for ships from all over the Mediterranean. The harbor was protected by a series of breakwaters, and it had a number of docks where ships could unload their cargo. The port of Piraeus was also home to a number of shipyards, where ships were built and repaired. Another important harbor was the port of Alexandria. It was situated on the western side of the harbor, and it was used primarily for military purposes. The port was home to a number of warships, and it was also used as a base for the navy of the Ptolemaic kingdom. The royal quarter was also home to the famous lighthouse of Alexandria. It was one of the tallest structures in the ancient world, and it served as a guide for ships entering the harbor. The lighthouse was built in the 3rd century BC, and it stood over 100 meters tall. It consisted of a square base with a cylindrical tower rising above it. The tower was topped by a large fire that could be seen for miles at sea. The lighthouse was not only a navigational aid, but it was also a symbol of the power and wealth of the Ptolemaic kingdom. It was also equipped with a mirror system that could direct the light in different directions. This made it possible to use the lighthouse to communicate with ships at night. Unfortunately, the lighthouse was destroyed by a series of earthquakes in the 14th century. Its ruins can still be seen off the coast of Alexandria today. The royal quarter was also home to a number of other important buildings and structures. These included the Temple of Isis, which was one of the most important temples in the Egyptian world, the Museum of Alexandria, which was one of the first great research institutions in the ancient world, and the Amphitheater of Alexandria, which was a major center for public entertainment. All of these buildings and structures were lost when the royal quarter was submerged. The reason why they were lost is because the earth trembled. In the 14th century, a series of earthquakes struck the coast of Egypt. These earthquakes caused massive landslides and tsunamis which buried large parts of the city, including the royal quarter. The earthquakes were so powerful that they also caused the sea level to rise, which led to even more destruction. In addition to the earthquakes, another natural disaster struck the city, namely subsidence is the sinking of land due to the removal of underground water or the collapse of underground cavities. In the case of Alexandria, the subsidence was caused by the extraction of groundwater. As the water table dropped, the soil above it began to sink. This process was accelerated by the construction of the royal palace, which put additional pressure on the ground. The subsidence was especially severe in the eastern part of the city, where the palace was located. This caused the ground to sink by as much as 1 meter per year. The subsidence was so bad that it caused some of the buildings to collapse into the sea. Today, all that remains of the royal quarter is a collection of submerged ruins. These ruins are scattered throughout the seafloor, and they include the foundations of the royal palaces, the lighthouse, the temple, and the harbor. The ruins are covered by a layer of sand and silt, which makes it difficult to see them. However, with the help of modern technology, archaeologists have been able to make some amazing discoveries. They found coins, pottery, statues, and other artifacts that give us a glimpse into the life and times of this ancient city. One of the most exciting discoveries was made in 2001 when a team of archaeologists, led by John Bintliff, discovered the foundations of the lighthouse. They also found the remains of a nearby harbor structure known as the cetaceia. Was a long, narrow building that was used for storing grain. It was located next to the lighthouse, and it was probably used to store grain that was brought in from the provinces of the Ptolemaic kingdom. The discovery of the foundations of the lighthouse and the cetaceia was a major breakthrough in our understanding of Alexandria. It provided physical evidence of the location of these important structures, and gave us a better understanding of how they functioned. Another interesting discovery was made in 2005, when a team of archaeologists led by Khaled Abu el-Fadel discovered a Roman villa in the western harbor. The villa was built in the 2nd or 3rd century AD, and it was probably used as a vacation home by a wealthy Roman senator. The villa was beautifully decorated with mosaics, frescoes, and marble statues. It was also surrounded by a garden and a pool. The discovery of the villa showed us that the harbor area was not just a commercial and industrial zone, but it was also a popular place for wealthy people to relax and enjoy themselves. Underwater archaeology is a challenging but rewarding field of study. It requires a special kind of person, someone who is passionate about history and the underwater environment. Underwater archaeologists use a variety of techniques to excavate and study submerged sites. They use scuba gear to dive down and explore the site. They may also use underwater vehicles to take a closer look at the site. Once they have located something of interest, they carefully excavate it using small tools. They take notes and photographs, and they may also collect samples for further analysis. Underwater archaeology is an exciting and rapidly growing field. New discoveries are being made all the time, and we are learning more about our world's maritime history than ever before. So now you know a little bit more about the royal quarter of ancient Alexandria. I hope you enjoyed this journey through time. If you did, please don't forget to leave me a comment down below. I always appreciate hearing what you have to say. Thank you for watching. Until next time. Hello there, welcome to part 5. It's me. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to spend it with me here. It means a lot, and to those of you who have been here from the very beginning, thank you. We're getting close to the end of our journey now, so I'm glad you've decided to stay with me till the very end. If you're new to this series, then welcome aboard. You can go back and watch all the previous parts if you would like to, but you don't have to. Each part stands alone, so you can just sit back and enjoy yourself. And if you do find anything interesting or helpful in any of my videos, please share them with others. That really helps my channel out a lot. Okay, let's continue our journey. When we left off last time, we had just begun to explore the vast complex that is the Temple of Toposiris Magna. We noticed 2 small shrines nestled up against the propylaea, which were dedicated to Isis and Osiris respectively. We saw that one of these contained a statue of the goddess, and the other a statue of the god, and we pointed out how strange it was to find them in this position, since they should really be facing each other instead of being side by side. But this was not the only strange thing about these 2 statues. There was something else hidden in plain sight that almost went unnoticed. Can you spot what it is? Well, look again. Do you see it yet? Take another look. How about now? Can you tell what it is? It's that the faces of both statues are carved into the bedrock. They are not detached features placed on top of the stone bodies. This means that the statues themselves are actually only a thin layer of marble covering solid rock. The reason why they are covered in marble at all is probably because the bedrock was too badly eroded away in these places to stand alone. But this also means that they are extremely heavy and difficult to move. These statues could not have been taken down and moved without great difficulty. So, whoever did this must have been prepared to put in the effort. Why they felt the need to do this is anybody's guess. Perhaps they wanted to prevent the statues from falling apart completely. Or perhaps they were trying to hide something else. Something buried deep beneath the earth. We walked through the main gate and began our exploration of the temple proper, noticing an inscription along the way that dated its construction to the reign of Ptolemy the 8th. We entered the first court, which was surrounded on 3 sides by colonnades and had 2 rows of columns in front of the cella. This area was once filled with offerings and other items used in religious rituals, such as incense burners. We could still see traces of color on some of the stones and get a sense of how grand the temple once was when it glittered with gold leaf and brilliant pigments. The next room we came to was the so-called treasury. It had 6 square pillars and 2 rows of columns, with a niche in place of a statue in the center of each wall. These niches could have held offerings or statues of various deities and pharaohs. In the back was a small room with a single niche containing an offering table. This may have been used as a treasury where valuables and offerings made to the gods were kept safe from thieves and the elements. Next we came to the sanctuary of Osiris. It was larger than the other 2 sanctuaries and had 7 columns in front of the cella instead of 6. There was also a small room in the back with 2 niches, one containing an altar and the other housing a statue of Horus. The reason why this room was used as a sanctuary is unknown, but it may have been because it was closer to the main entrance and therefore more accessible to pilgrims on their way to the inner sanctum. In front of the sanctuary of Osiris was a courtyard with a fountain in the center. The water from the fountain flowed through a series of channels into a large pool, which then circulated around the base of the temple before returning to the fountain to be reused. This system allowed for the temple to maintain a pleasant atmosphere even in the hottest months of the year. Behind the main temple was a row of smaller shrines dedicated to various goddesses, including Hathor Nephthys and These were probably built during the reign of Cleopatra too, who was particularly devoted to Hathor. The last shrine in the row was uninscribed, but it was clear from the iconography that it was dedicated to Isis. Walking past these shrines took us to the sacred lake. This body of water was used for ritual purification, and it was also believed to have healing properties. According to legend, the water never dried up, even during the worst droughts, and it was said that fish from the lake could cure all diseases. This belief led to the construction of a bathhouse near the lake, which was used by pilgrims seeking relief from ailments both physical and mental. Next to the bathhouse was a row of rooms, which may have been used as living quarters for priests and their families. These rooms were simple, but comfortable, with small courtyards and gardens to provide some relief from the heat. Our final destination in this area was the necropolis. Here we found a series of tombs cut into the bedrock, some of which were decorated with colorful paintings. The most impressive tomb belonged to Petasiris, a wealthy official who lived during the reign of Ramesses III. His tomb was filled with treasures, including jewelry, furniture, and even chariots. Unfortunately, most of these artifacts were looted over the centuries, but enough remains to give us a glimpse into the wealth and power of Egypt's elite. One of the most interesting finds in the necropolis was a group of Roman coins bearing Cleopatra's profile. This tells us that the site was still being used as a place of pilgrimage during the early years of Roman rule. The last discovery we made on our tour was a collection of shafts and corridors leading deep underground. Some of these tunnels were filled with rubbish, while others contained more valuable items, such as pottery and even mummies. It's believed that these tunnels were used for various purposes, such as storing grain or burying the dead. As we made our way back to the temple, we couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder and awe at what we had just seen. From the towering columns to the mysterious underground tunnels, Osiris Magna was truly a place of great power and mystery. And although much of it has been lost to the ravages of time, it still managed to leave us with a sense of the greatness that once was. I bet you didn't know that, just outside the city walls of Alexandria, there were several desert sanctuaries built to honor various Egyptian deities. These sanctuaries were located in a secluded area of the western desert, away from the hustle and bustle of city life, and they provided a place of peace and solitude for those seeking to connect with the divine. The sanctuaries were not grand structures like the temples in the city, but rather consisted of small shrines and altars hidden among the dunes. Despite their humble appearance, they were highly revered by the local population and played an important role in the religious life of ancient Alexandria. The people believed that these sanctuaries were blessed with special powers and that the gods were especially active in this area. They would visit these places on pilgrimages, performing rituals and making offerings to the gods in hopes of receiving their blessings. The most popular deity worshipped at these desert sanctuaries was, of course, the goddess Isis, but other gods such as Osiris and Horus also had shrines here. People came from all over the city to visit these sanctuaries, and some even traveled from other cities to experience the unique spiritual energy of this place. The exact location of these sanctuaries is unknown, but it's believed that they were situated in a remote area of the western desert, far from the prying eyes of outsiders. This added to the mystique of these places, making them all the more appealing to those seeking a true connection with the divine. But why did Cleopatra choose to build her memorial here? Was she trying to connect herself to the gods in some way? Or was there another reason entirely? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we have come to the end of our journey. I hope you enjoyed exploring the Temple of Taposiris Magna with me. If you did, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any thoughts, opinions, or ideas you would like to share with me, please comment below. I always appreciate hearing from you. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Ptolemy believed that by erecting a suitable monument, they could ensure the safe passage of their soul to the afterlife. For a commoner, this might mean just a simple tomb to house their body until it was completely decomposed. But for someone of royal status, it meant creating a monumental structure to house their body for all eternity. And if said royal person is descended from Alexander the Great and has a particular fondness for the Egyptian god Osiris, well, then you get something like this. An enormous mortuary temple with a rectangular, sunken court surrounded by 4 massive pylons. You know, if you want to be king of the known world, you gotta die like one too. It's me, and this is part 6 of our series on ancient Egyptian tombs. If you missed parts 1 through 5, you can find them in the playlist linked above or below, depending on your orientation towards the earth. Today we're recontinuing our tours of the great royal resting places of Egypt, with a stop at the surprisingly non-Egyptian Alexandria to see how Ptolemaic funerary beliefs and rites combined Egyptian and Greek elements into a unique blend of cultures and death. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If there was ever a royal dynasty that embodied the fusion of Egyptian and Greek cultures, it was the Ptolemies. When Alexander the Great seized Memphis in 332 BCE, he saw firsthand the enduring legacy of ancient Egyptian civilization. So when he subsequently conquered the entire known world, he took some time to stop and smell the roses, and found a new religion that worshipped him as a god. And his general Ptolemy the First was no exception. After ascending to kingship following Alexander's untimely demise, Ptolemy continued to present himself as a divine ruler while simultaneously making every effort to ingratiate himself with the Egyptians by adopting the title of pharaoh and styling himself after their gods. One of the most important aspects of pharaonic rule was the maintenance of Mat, which refers to both the goddess of truth and justice and the concept of cosmic order. To ensure the continuation of Mahat, the pharaoh had to keep everything running smoothly, both in the land of the living and in the afterlife. In fact, it was believed that the pharaoh's power was renewed each year during the season of the flood, when the Nile overflowed its banks and deposited nutrient-rich silt onto the fields. This annual renewal was also reflected in the celebration of the winter solstice. When the sun reached its southernmost point in the sky and began its journey back north, bringing with it the promise of spring and rebirth, the last pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, the Pigeon-Toed, built a funerary temple at the edge of the desert where the solstices and equinoxes could be observed, complete with a large altar for incense offerings at the center of the courtyard. This tradition continued throughout the New Kingdom and into the reign of the first Ptolemaic pharaoh, Ptolemy I. His choice of building his mortuary temple at the site of ancient Helios, where the sun god Ra was believed to have first emerged from the primordial waters of Nun, further emphasized his connection to the divine order of the cosmos. In fact, the entire complex was designed to align with the cardinal directions and the rising and setting of the sun. The rectangular sunken court was oriented to the north to align with the winter solstice, while the 2 large pylons facing east and west were positioned to frame the rising and setting of the sun. Incense would have been burned at the center of the court, sending its smoke rising up through the open center of the reshaped columns, and out the Hathor Abbers on top, symbolic of the pharaoh's soul ascending to the heavens. Another interesting feature of these pylon columns are the gold leaf capitals that decorate their tops. Gold leaf was a common material used for the decoration of royal tombs, because it symbolized the sun and was associated with immortality. In fact, one of the first things a pharaoh would do upon ascending to the throne was to commission the creation of a golden throne as a symbol of their divine power. And while it was customary to encase the sarcophagus itself in gold leaf, as was done for Tutankhamun, It was also popular to adorn the interior walls of the tomb with gold leaf. The most famous example of this is in the tomb of the boy pharaoh, where the walls of the burial chamber are covered with intricate paintings of the young king sailing through the underworld and being received by the gods. These paintings not only served as a way to document the pharaoh's journey through the afterlife, but also as a form of protection, ensuring the safe passage of the deceased. As such, the walls of the royal tombs were often covered in protective spells and incantations such as the well-known Book of the Dead, which contained a collection of prayers, hymns, and spells that were designed to help the deceased navigate the perils of the afterlife. While it was customary for an ordinary Egyptian to be buried with their possessions, such as furniture, food, and even their favorite animals, the Ptolemaic rulers went all out when it came to decking out their tombs. Instead of simply placing the sarcophagus in the center of a room, they created a monumental structure made of layers of stone and gold leaf, often in the shape of a pyramid. The most famous example of this is the tomb of Alexander the Great, where his sarcophagus was encased in a solid gold coffin and placed inside a pyramid-shaped monument. While only fragments of the monument remain today, it's clear that it was once a lavish display of wealth and power. And that just about brings us to the end of our tour of the great royal resting places of Egypt. Join us next time as we continue our exploration of the rich and fascinating history of ancient Egyptian funerary practices. And we'll begin today with ground-penetrating radar. Gentle but insistent waves of energy pulse down into the earth. What they find is stored in these black boxers. When they surface again, they're picked up by this array of 24 antennas. The resulting data is translated into these remarkable maps. Areas of lighter color indicate voids or cavities such as buried tombs or chambers underground. This method has been used to map the interior of the Great Pyramid without having to drill any holes or bring any unwanted mechanical intrusions into the structure. Magnetometry measures variations in the Earth's magnetic field. By walking slowly and steadily across the surface of the Earth, we can detect minute changes in the magnetic readings that may correspond to buried objects. These maps show areas where there may be differences in magnetic susceptibility between the target and the surrounding materials, indicating possible archaeological features. Another way of seeing what lies beneath the surface is through sonar. If we have water tight enough to prevent us from seeing the bottom, then sound waves generated by a transducer can travel down, reflect off the bottom, and return to be picked up by that same transducer. From this information, we can generate maps of the seafloor and detect submerged features such as ancient shipwrecks or perhaps even entire lost cities. Photogrammetry uses aerial photography, usually from a drone, to capture images which are later stitched together to form a panorama. Through this process, we can virtually fly over a site and produce detailed maps, useful for identifying patterns and potential anomalies for further investigation. For example, at this Maya site, in Belize, photogrammetry was used to identify collapsed structures and to map the extent of the site. Epigraphy involves painstakingly cleaning and mapping all the glyphs or other markings on a given structure, such as this Maya temple. This work is ongoing and has yielded invaluable information about past cultures. By understanding the language and symbols used in these inscriptions, we gain insight into their history and culture. Now let's look at the last method, the one that makes the quietest data sing the loudest. Careful conservation. This is the longest and most labor-intensive method of them all, because it requires us to go in and do things ourselves. We must brush away dirt and vegetation, carefully chip away at hard surfaces, often using only hand tools, and sometimes even employ acids to dissolve stubborn deposits. But the results are worth it. As we remove the hardened crust of centuries, we reveal the soft, warm colors beneath. Colors that tell stories of past lives and vibrant cultures. This is what we do. This is why we do it. And this is the story that it tells. As each season passes, new layers of data are added to the maps. They don't always say what we want to hear. Sometimes they confirm our expectations, but often they surprise us. All of these maps together, silent witnesses to countless stories, build a rich tapestry of information about the past. Like threads in a tapestry, they interweave to create a complex and beautiful pattern. Each map tells a part of the story, but together they form a richer, more complete picture. These maps guide our investigations, focusing our attention on areas of interest and providing insights into the patterns and processes of the past. They help us understand the world in which our ancestors lived and help us unravel the mysteries of their achievements and adaptations. Some maps reveal the secrets of ancient construction techniques, showcasing the ingenuity and skill of past civilizations. By studying these maps, we gain a deeper appreciation for the efforts and expertise required to create such magnificent structures. Other maps unveil the intricate networks of ancient trade routes, shedding light on the exchange of goods and cultural influences across vast distances. They allow us to trace the movement of people and products, revealing the interconnectedness of ancient societies and the far-reaching impact of their interactions. Some maps depict the ebb and flow of ancient populations, illustrating the dynamics of settlement and migration over time. They help us comprehend the factors that shaped population patterns, such as resource availability, environmental changes, and social dynamics. Still, other maps portray the delicate balance between humans and their environment in the ancient world. They reveal how ancient societies interacted with their surroundings, managed resources, and adapted to changing landscapes. By examining these maps, we gain insights into the sustainability practices, land use, and environmental management of past civilizations. But these maps are more than just records of the past. They serve as powerful reminders of the fragility and complexity of ancient societies. By studying them, we learn about the challenges they faced, such as climate change, natural disasters, and conflicts, and the strategies they employed to cope with these adversities. The quietest data become maps of possibility, whispers of the past that resonate through time, guiding our steps and igniting our curiosity. They speak to us across the ages, inviting us to explore the rich tapestry of human history and experience the world through the eyes of our ancestors. And here we are once again, surrounded by the timeless whispers of the past. In the intricate patterns, etched into stone and soil, we see echoes of ancient lives lived, stories waiting to be told. Here, amidst the silent narratives of ages gone by, we find ourselves drawn into the intricate dance of discovery. With every brushstroke, every careful chip, and every measured reading, we peel back the layers of time, uncovering fragments of a forgotten world. Here, in the heart of these ancient chronicles, we encounter the legacies of those who came before us, their triumphs and struggles, their beliefs and customs, their hopes and dreams. Here, in the embrace of history, we connect with the enduring spirit of humanity, recognizing the threads that bind us to our ancestral past. And as the sun sets over the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, we stand in awe of the stories that unfold before us. In the fading light, we see the imprint of generations long gone, their presence lingering like a half-remembered dream. And as darkness falls and the stars begin to gleam, we carry with us the echoes of their voices, carried on the wings of time, reminding us of the enduring power of the human spirit. If this is your first time joining us for one of these videos, know that every episode we explore some of the creepiest, weirdest, and most tragic stories from history. And while some of these tales might be completely true, others could be complete lies. That's why we call this series Whispers of the Past. Because what we're about to tell you are stories passed down through generations which have never really been confirmed. So without further ado, here are some more of the scariest whispers of the past. We're all familiar with the story of the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD, when a fire swept through the Roman Empire capital, burning down 4 of the 14 districts of the city and leaving thousands homeless. But there is a whisper that there was a conspiracy behind the fire. The rumor claims that Nero ordered his own wife, Poppaea Sabina, to start the blaze. You see, Nero had decided to de-emphasize Rome and refocus the empire's attention on Greece. He wanted to make Greece the new capital and abandoned his plans to build his Grand Dumas Transitoria near the Forum Magnum, which would have rivaled the palace of the city. Instead, he built a replica of that palace in Greece and transferred much of the Senate there. But this whisper suggests that Poppaea was against the move and started the fire as a way to frame the Christians, who were a minority in Rome at the time. Historians do agree that Nero persecuted the Christians after the fire, but whether or not Poppaea started the blaze is still debated by historians today. The tomb of Jesus Christ is one of the holiest sites in Christianity. However, nobody knows exactly where it is. There are many different alleged sites claiming to be the final resting place of Jesus, but none can be verified. One of the most popular candidates for Jesus' tomb is a cave in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem's Old City. Scholars believe that the church was constructed around a limestone structure which was probably part of a Jewish burial. complex from the Second Temple period. However, whether Jesus was buried here, or whether the tomb is even his, is unknown. The Great Pyramid of Giza is one of the most fascinating structures ever made, standing at over 450 feet tall. It was built around 2050 BC, and is the oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It has endured for thousands of years, with some whisper that it may not be the oldest structure in the world. See, according to some, the Egyptians didn't actually build the pyramids. They merely renovated them. Apparently, the pyramids were originally built by an advanced civilization that predated the Egyptian Empire. The Egyptians came across the pyramids during their reign and simply took credit for building them. This theory is known as the Lost Civilization theory, and it's generally associated with pseudo-archaeologist Graham Hancock. Now, if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear the next whisper. Many people are fascinated by ancient Egypt, and one of the biggest mysteries surrounding that civilization is how the pyramids were built. Some historians suggest that the Egyptians used slave labor to construct these massive tombs, but it's likely that they were built by skilled craftsmen who were well compensated for their work. However, there's another whisper that says the pyramids weren't built at all. According to this tale, the pyramids were manufactured by extraterrestrials who visited the Earth thousands of years ago. The aliens supposedly created the pyramids as landing pads for their spacecraft and left them behind when they departed our planet. There is zero evidence that humans were involved in building the pyramids at all. But again, as always, it's just a whisper. One of the greatest mysteries of the Second World War is what happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste was an American merchant ship that set sail from New York to Genoa, Italy, but the ship was found abandoned off the Azores Islands. When the ship was discovered, it was clear that all of the crew except the captain had abandoned the vessel in a hurry. The cargo was intact, as were the personal belongings of the crew. There was also no sign of foul play. This led to speculation that pirates or supernatural forces were responsible for the disappearance of the crew. However, the most likely explanation is that an unknown number of crew members became ill due to a hole in the ship's hull and jumped ship before the vessel sank. In recent years, it has been widely reported that somewhere deep beneath the bustling streets of Istanbul is an enormous vault containing the bodies of millions. Some claim it contains between 3 and 7 million corpses. Others claim it houses as many as 10 million bodies. Now, it is generally accepted that the city does have a large underground necropolis system which dates back to the Ottoman Empire. But no one knows exactly how many bodies are stored in the tunnels. Some have suggested that the tunnels stretch from the Grand Bazaar to the harbor, and that the bones belong to victims of plagues which swept through the city in previous centuries. However, no one has been able to verify these claims yet. Some people believe that Paris is cursed. Over the past few hundred years, a number of violent conflicts have devastated the city, including the French Revolution, to world wars, and numerous terrorist attacks. In addition, Paris has been the target of several assassination attempts, including the most famous one on Adolf Hitler in 1944. However, there is one whisper in particular about Paris that stands out among the rest. The legend goes that the city has a tunnel system which stretches throughout the metropolis. These tunnels are said to be remnants of the city's medieval sewers, which were used as hiding places by enemies of the crown. It's rumored that Napoleon used these tunnels to escape Paris during the French Revolution, but no one knows exactly what's down there. The mysterious Voynich manuscript is one of the most puzzling artifacts ever discovered. The book is filled with strange illustrations of plants, stars, and nude women, but no one knows what language it's written in or what it actually means. It's believed that the book was written in the early 15th century, but it wasn't until 1912 that it was purchased by an antiquarian bookseller named Wilfred Voynich. Since then, it's been the subject of countless theories and investigations, but nobody has been able to decipher the text. Some believe that the book contains a secret code, which can only be understood by those who are worthy. Others believe that it's nothing more than a hoax, but until it's decoded, we'll never know for sure. There are many different theories regarding the identity of Jack the Ripper, the infamous serial killer who terrorized London's Whitechapel district in 1888. The most popular theory is that the killer was Francis Tumblety, an American barber who emigrated to England in 1884. Tumblety was known to frequent the pubs and brothels in Whitechapel, and he had a history of violence against women. However, despite the evidence, Tumblety was never charged with any of the murders, and he died in 1903 without ever being identified as Jack the Ripper. Al Capone was one of the most notorious gangsters in American history. During the 1920s and 30s, he led the Chicago Outfit, a criminal organization that specialized in bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution. In 1931, Capone was convicted of tax evasion and sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. After serving 7 years, he was released and spent the remainder of his life in Florida, but some whisper that Capone never went to prison at all. This sounds absolutely ridiculous since there are tons of photos of him in prison and even audio recordings of him. However, some believe that the government staged the entire thing to get rid of Capone. One of the most popular tourist destinations in Las Vegas is the Neon Museum, a collection of retired neon signs from casinos and other businesses that once thrived on the Las Vegas Strip. The museum is located in a former downtown casino, but it is rumored that there is a secret entrance to the museum from the basement of the nearby Binioness gambling hall. The rumor claims that the secret entrance was used by mobsters to sneak into the museum and steal valuable neon signs, but nobody knows for sure. One of the most popular tourist attractions in Las Vegas is the Bellagio Fountains, a series of choreographed fountains that dance to various musical numbers. The fountains are located on the grounds of the Bellagio Hotel and Casino, but it's rumored that there is a secret tunnel that runs from the casino to the fountains. The rumor claims that the tunnel was used by mobsters to sneak onto the casino grounds and rob the slot machines, but nobody knows for sure. Conspiracy theories abound regarding the death of President John F. Kennedy. On November 22, 1963, Kennedy was assassinated while riding in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas. The official investigation concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in killing the president, but many people disagree, believing instead that there was a larger conspiracy involved in the plot. Some believe that the CIA was behind the assassination, while others believe that it was the Mafia or even the Soviet Union. But until more evidence comes to light, we may never know for sure. Now, divers continue their work mapping the wreck, carefully brushing away silt to reveal more of the hull. The team is on the lookout for anything that might help them understand what happened to the ship, anything that might shed light on the markings or the damage to the hull. But they also know that some things are best left undisturbed. So far, the dive has been relatively uneventful, but after several hours underwater, they finally spot something interesting. A trench runs along the port side of the wreck, cut deep into the oak planks. It could have been caused by a grappling hook used to pull the ship closer to shore during salvage operations in the 1860 segundos. But that's not all they find. Tucked under a floorboard, almost hidden from view, is a small wooden box. Inside is a tarnished silver goblet. It's intricately engraved with scenes from classical mythology. The diver carefully wipes away the silt to reveal one inscription in particular, the crest of a lion biting the head off a snake. This may be the crest of a merchant's company. If they can identify it, it could potentially lead them to records of the ship's voyage, and perhaps even its cargo manifest. On land, the excavators are making steady progress as they slowly remove the sand and soil that has accumulated over the artifacts. They have now reached the point where they can begin carefully brushing away the remaining dirt to expose the full extent of the find. The work is slow and meticulous, but the rewards are great. Each brushstroke revealing another piece of history. In the distance, the sun rises over the horizon, casting its golden glow over the archaeological site. As the light fades, the team prepares to wrap up for the day. They have uncovered a wealth of artifacts, each telling a story of its own. From the goblet found by the diver to the tools and personal belongings discovered by the Together, these objects will help paint a picture of life on board the ship and provide clues to its ultimate fate. In the museum lab, the conservator carefully removes the X-ray film from its developing block, revealing the first image of the waterlogged goblet. The intricate details of the stem are clearly visible, as well as the sediment and marine growth that has accumulated over the years. With the X-ray in hand, the conservator begins the slow process of cleaning and removing the encrusting material. Each movement is deliberate and precise, as the goal is to preserve the artifact for future generations without causing any damage. Slowly but surely, the true beauty of the goblet is revealed. The delicate tracery of the stem, the intricate designs on the bowl, and the glimmer of silver beneath all that grime. The work is painstaking, but the results are worth it. The artifact is not just a collection of metal and glass, but a tangible link to the past as the sun streams through the skylights, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The excavator carefully brushes away the centuries of dirt to reveal the outline of a human face. It's barely visible, but the hint of a smile and the shape of the eyes suggest a person full of life. And as the light fades, the diver runs their fingers over the smooth surface of the hull, feeling the strength and resilience of the oak timbers that once carried precious cargo across the oceans. The ship may be lost, but its story lives on, and the artifacts it has yielded, and the people who continue to explore its watery grave. We've been exploring the deep in the heart of the desert sands, uncovering secrets from the depths of the ocean. Join us as we uncover more untold stories from the deep. The search for Cleopatra's sunken palace has captivated the world, with its possible locations narrowed down to 4 spots. The anticipation is palpable, but which one of these spots holds the key to unraveling the mysteries of the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt? Let's dive in. Hey there, welcome to this channel. If you are new here, remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future updates. So, let's continue where we left off. The quest to find Cleopatra's sunken palace has taken us on a roller coaster ride through time and speculation. Now we find ourselves at the doorstep of a monumental discovery, possibly staring into the depths of the lost palace. The question is, with 4 promising spots on the radar, which one will lead us to the fabled heart of Cleopatra's underwater kingdom? Our first stop takes us back to where it all began. The royal quarter ruins, approximately 6 miles or 10 kilometers off the coast of Alexandria. These remnants of a bygone era whisper tales of a grand past and hint at the possibility of finding Cleopatra's palace amidst the coral and sea. Could this be the place where the Queen of the Nile once held court? Or is the palace hidden somewhere else entirely? As we shift our focus to Taposiris Magna, we find ourselves drawn to this Greco-Roman city about 20 miles or 32 kilometers southwest of Alexandria. The site boasts 2 famous temples dedicated to Osiris and Isis, and holds the potential to unlock more secrets of the ancient world. Here at the Temple of Osiris, archaeologists have uncovered a plethora of artifacts, including countless coins and even mummified remains buried beneath the temple floor. This discovery suggests that the temple was revered not just as a house of worship, but also as a necropolis. What could be the connection between Cleopatra's legacy and this sacred site? Will uncovering more about Taposiris Magna shed light on the whereabouts of the Queen's submerged palace? But our journey doesn't end here. We venture further to the south of Alexandria, where 3 necropolises dot the landscape around Lake Mariaud, each holding the promise of new revelations. In particular, the necropolis known as the City of the Dead beckons with its underground tombs adorned with intricate carvings and vibrant colors. These subterranean labyrinths are not only a testament to the artistry of the ancient Egyptians, but also a potential source of clues regarding Cleopatra's final resting place. What secrets lie hidden within these tombs, and could they hold the key to finding the missing palace? With each site visited, the mystery deepens, teasing us with tantalizing hints while keeping its secrets close. The search continues, driven by the relentless pursuit of knowledge and the desire to pay homage to one of history's most enigmatic queens. Now we make our way to the final contender, a coastal site somewhere between Alexandria and the city of Canopus, roughly 43 miles or 70 kilometers to the southwest. This area holds both archaeological treasures, such as the Temple of Hagkaris and the necropolis of Kamel, as well as the potential key to unlocking the mysteries of Cleopatra's submerged palace. As we explore the Temple of Hagkaris, we find ourselves immersed in the grandeur of a site once dedicated to the gods Serapis and Isis. This temple, much like Taposiris Magna, offers a window into the religious practices and beliefs of the time, providing valuable context to Cleopatra's reign. What connections can be made between the Queen's legacy and this sacred space? And could the temple hold clues leading us closer to her submerged palace? Further enriching our journey is the necropolis of Kamel Shakufa, also known as the Kamel Shakufa Catacombs. This underground labyrinth is home to a myriad of artifacts, and provides a glimpse into the burial practices of the ancient world. Exploring these catacombs may reveal more about Cleopatra's era, and potentially shed light on the whereabouts of her lost palace. Each location visited brings us closer to understanding the complexities of Cleopatra's world, the culture, religion, and beliefs that shaped her life and legacy. As we piece together the fragments of the past, we uncover not only the secrets of the submerged palace, but also gain a deeper appreciation for the brilliance of one of history's most renowned queens. The stakes have never been higher, and the quest becomes a race against time. As tides shift and currents change, the race to find Cleopatra's lost palace intensifies. But what if the solution to this enduring mystery lies not just in the depths of the ocean, but in the stories and legends that have survived the test of time? What if the key to finding the submerged palace lies in the myths and folklore surrounding Cleopatra's life? Perhaps the Tyles, whispered by generations past, hold more truth than we realize. Maybe the legends speak not only of a lost city, but also of a queen whose image has been tarnished by the sands of time. Could Cleopatra, often portrayed as an exotic and enigmatic ruler, be seen in a new light when we explore the depths of her underwater palace? Would discovering her palace allow us to separate fact from fiction, shedding light on the real woman behind the myths and legends? The allure of the unknown draws us deeper into the mystery, urging us to continue the search. As we delve into the world of mythology and legend, we must ask ourselves, could Cleopatra's true story be more captivating than any myth? And will uncovering her legacy inspire a re-examination of how we perceive one of history's most iconic rulers? But the question remains, where is Cleopatra's submerged palace? Is it nestled amidst the coral reefs and seagrass of the royal quarter ruins, whispering tales of a bygone era? Or does it lie hidden beneath the sands of time atop Osiris Magna, waiting to be unearthed? Perhaps the necropolises near Lake Mariout hold the answers we seek, with their underground tombs and intricate carvings serving as silent guardians of Cleopatra's legacy. Or maybe the coastal site between